My dear friends, we are not disembodied brains floating in a sea of reason, nor are we beasts driven entirely by appetite. We are, as it turns out, something far more dangerous and wonderful. Creatures with both thought and will, reason and desire, capable of dreaming about eternity and still stumbling on the way to breakfast. When we ask the question, "How do I control my mind?" we must not imagine ourselves as engineers opening the hood of a machine. The mind is no mere lever to pull or wire to reconnect. It is a wild country, full of mountains and mists, haunted by memories, driven by echoes of childhood, and stirred by shadows of a far-off home we've never seen but cannot forget. To control your mind, then, is first to recognize that you are not your thoughts. Your mind is not you in the deepest sense. It is more like a horse, and you the rider. Now, if the horse is wild, it will throw you, but if you never take up the reins, how will it learn the path? Start by watching your mind. Listen to its whispers. Is it constantly rehearsing old wounds? Is it repeating lies someone once told you, or perhaps lies you told yourself? The first discipline of mental control is awareness. You cannot guide what you will not face. But awareness alone is not enough. You must fill your mind with something better. Think of your mind as a garden. If you do not plant roses, weeds will come. Not might come, but will. If you do not choose what dwells in your thoughts, then bitterness, lust, fear, and vanity will choose for you. So, what shall you plant? Truth for one, goodness for another, beauty for the nourishment of the soul. Turn your gaze to the eternal, not the immediate. The world will tempt your mind to drift with every fashion and folly. But fashions pass, follies rot, and drifting never brought anyone home. Also, train your imagination. For what you habitually picture, you begin to love, and what you love, you will serve. Picture yourself not as flawless, but as someone being shaped, hammered, yes, but also carved by something greater than you. Let your imagination be a servant of virtue, not a slave of vanity. Now let us speak of habits. The mind, you see, responds to routine. Set it good tasks, and it will grow strong in them. Let it indulge too often in sloth or panic or fantasy, and it will grow weak. Your morning thoughts set the tone for your day. Your nightly musings shape the soil of your dreams. Guard the gates morning and evening. Finally, know this: no one truly controls their mind by sheer force. Control in the highest sense is not about dominance, but about direction. Your mind is a river. You cannot stop its flow, but you can shape its course, build the banks with truth, guide its waters with discipline. Let it be fed not by the gutters of gossip or despair, but by the springs of wisdom. And when you fail, as you surely will from time to time, do not despair. The path is long and the weeds grow back, but each act of discipline is a quiet victory. Each refusal to let the mind wander into the wilderness of lies is a step homeward. So, do not simply try to control your mind as if it were a device to be programmed. Rather, guide it, guard it, and give it to what is good. And in doing so, you will find not only self-mastery, but something better: peace, purpose, and the quiet joy of a mind aligned with truth. The mind is not the master, but a servant awaiting instruction. This truth, though simple in phrasing, bears immense weight upon the way we live, the choices we make, and the results we reap. Many imagine their thoughts to be sovereign, their emotions inevitable, and their inclinations untamable. But what if the mind is not meant to lead but to follow? What if it is not the king of the self, but its most powerful servant? This idea, once embraced, shifts the entire framework of self, understanding, and personal transformation. The modern world glorifies the intellect. Intelligence is praised, mental agility is rewarded, and quick wit is mistaken for wisdom. But there is a vast difference between a sharp mind and a directed mind. A sword, however finely crafted, is useless in the hands of the undisciplined, and so it is with the mind. Left to its own devices, it drifts, obsesses, clings, reacts, and wanders. It consumes and imitates. It remembers insults longer than truth. It runs from discomfort and clings to distraction. Like a child left alone in a room full of sweets and fire, the mind cannot be trusted to govern itself without a firm hand. To say that the mind is a servant is not to diminish its importance. A good servant is invaluable. The mind is capable of astonishing creativity, profound insight, and logical clarity. It can perceive patterns, construct beauty, articulate the inexpressible, and hold the weight of vast ideas. But it is precisely because the mind is so powerful that it must be governed. Left untethered, its gifts can become destructive. A brilliant mind without moral direction can justify evil with eloquence. An imaginative mind without discipline can fabricate fear, pride, or illusion. The issue is not whether the mind is capable. It clearly is. The question is whether it is being told what to do and by whom. Herein lies the subtle but critical point. If you do not instruct your mind, something else will. The mind is never neutral, never idle in the truest sense. If it is not directed by truth, it will be directed by habit, emotion, impulse, or the loudest voice in the room. Culture will whisper its lies, trauma will replay its scenes, advertisements, entertainment, and social comparison will infiltrate its hallways. The mind absorbs, it clings to what is repeated, it conforms to its environment. And without clear instruction, it will serve whatever master is most persistent, not necessarily most worthy. Instruction must come from a deeper place, a more grounded core of self. Call it the will, the spirit, the conscience, or even the soul. It must be something stable, something capable of seeing beyond immediate pleasure or pain. This inner authority must rise and take hold of the reins. To control the mind, one must first recognize the difference between desire and direction, between thought and truth. Not every thought is true. Not every feeling is a command. Not every impulse should be obeyed. The disciplined self learns to observe the mind without obeying it blindly. It learns to question, to pause, to redirect. Consider how easily the mind forms habits. It ruminates on failure, rehearses offense, invents scenarios that will never happen, and fixates on what cannot be controlled. And once these patterns take root, the mind repeats them endlessly, like a record stuck in a groove. Without conscious instruction, the mind's repetitions become reality. One begins to believe what is familiar rather than what is true. This is why so many people remain trapped in cycles of fear, guilt, resentment, or shame. Not because the truth demands it, but because the mind has made a home there and was never told to move. Instruction involves both correction and direction. Correction involves identifying what is false or harmful and gently replacing it. Direction involves setting the mind on a course and calling it back when it strays. This is not a one-time event, but a daily, hourly practice. One must become a quiet guardian, a faithful instructor, patient but firm. Thoughts must be guided toward what is noble, good, enduring, and true. Attention must be redirected from vanity to virtue, from distraction to purpose. The mind must be taught to serve the higher self, not sabotage it. Training the mind does not mean silencing it or suppressing emotion. On the contrary, it involves cultivating its finest qualities. It means developing the capacity to reason clearly, to imagine deeply, to reflect honestly, and to think critically. But these abilities must serve a worthy end. The mind must not be used merely to justify our desires, to defend our egos, or to construct pleasant illusions. It must be used to seek truth even when truth is uncomfortable. It must be used to build, not to destroy, to illuminate, not to deceive. We do not control the thoughts that first enter our minds, but we do choose which ones stay. Like a host at the door of the house, we decide which guests are welcome and which must be turned away. Every time we refuse to entertain a toxic thought, we strengthen our authority. Every time we replace a lie with truth, we reclaim territory. Every time we choose gratitude over complaint, patience over reaction, peace over anxiety, we train the servant to serve well, and in time the mind does learn. It becomes familiar with peace. It remembers the path back to truth. It becomes less reactive, more observant. It learns not to fear silence, not to rush into judgment, not to believe everything it imagines. It becomes an ally rather than an adversary. But this only happens when the proper order is restored, the mind as servant, not master. The danger of forgetting this order is subtle but profound. If the mind is assumed to be the master, then every thought must be obeyed, every doubt must be indulged, and every fear must be validated. The individual becomes a slave to internal noise, a puppet of every whim, never quite sure who is in control. But when one remembers that the mind is a tool, a gift, a servant waiting for direction, a great burden is lifted. One no longer fears every thought that arises. One begins to act rather than react. One discovers freedom, not from the mind, but from its tyranny. True mastery begins with humility. It is the recognition that our minds are not omniscient, not infallible, not always helpful. But they can be trained, they can be transformed, and in the end, the mind makes a wonderful servant when it is taught to serve what is higher, deeper, and more enduring than itself.